Welcome to our channel. Today, we will discuss a very spooky Antarctic incident. This is an Antarctic incident that all scientists recognize in scientific records. Starting from this photo, what is so terrifying about it? In fact, it is extremely eerie. On an island, there is a lagoon with a sunken lifeboat in the middle. In the distance from the lifeboat, there is a seal watching it. Why is this photo terrifying? This photo was taken in 1964 by the captain of a South African research vessel. After taking this photo, many scientists researching Antarctica considered it a very terrifying detail. Why? Because this island is called Bouvet Island. Let's take a look at Bouvet Island on the map. It is actually an island belonging to Antarctica. It is the closest island to Antarctica, but still about 1,700 kilometers away. Drawing a huge circle around it, there is no land around it. In fact, it is where two glaciers from Antarctica converge onto a volcanic crater, forming this island. It is an Antarctic island. How large is the area of this uninhabited circle next to it? It is the size of the entire continent of Europe. Can you believe that on this isolated island, a lifeboat suddenly appeared? Isn't that terrifying? Truly chilling. What's even more terrifying is that a few years later, this lifeboat was found to have been taken away by someone. By whom? This story is quite intriguing. Let's delve into the details of this story. Firstly, who discovered this island in the beginning? It was discovered on January 1, 1739, by a French explorer named Bouvet de Lozier, who then named the island after himself. This island is known as Bouvet Island. The explorer marked it on the map and then departed. This island continued to exist on maps for nearly 200 years. The first time someone actually visited and surveyed Bouvet Island was in 1927 by a Norwegian research vessel. They came over, conducted measurements, and surveyed the island. Upon calculations and observations, they realized that it was an island in Antarctica, formed by two glaciers converging around a volcano. They circled the island for a while but couldn't find a suitable landing point. Eventually, they found a place where they could barely access the island and conducted some basic scientific examinations. After that, they left, confirming that the point marked on maps since 1739 indeed corresponded to the existence of Bouvet Island. Next, several decades later, another visit to this island occurred. In 1955, a South African expedition arrived with the intention of finding a suitable landing spot on the island to establish a weather station. They planned to use this station to monitor the climate in Antarctica and globally. However, just like the Norwegian vessel before them, the South African ship circled the island multiple times without finding a suitable landing spot. The Norwegians had managed to find a precarious spot to land due to their smaller group size, but the South Africans, needing equipment and supplies for setting up a weather station, realized that the island was inaccessible for landing. Disappointed, they circled the island and left. This is the third time this island has appeared in human sight. Next, in 1958, it had its fourth encounter with humans. It was an American icebreaker ship that came from the Antarctic side and noticed there was a volcanic eruption happening. They were there to study this volcanic eruption, and indeed, the volcano erupted, affecting the volcano beneath the island, causing it to erupt as well. After the eruption, it created a depression on the island, approximately 200 to 300 meters square, forming a beach where people could now land. This was excellent news as it provided a landing spot. They confirmed the existence of the volcano and the beach, documenting their findings as part of scientific records, essentially sharing this discovery with the world. Wasn't South Africa always aiming to establish a weather station there? Finally, after learning about the American expedition, 6 years later, in 1964, South Africa made a grand entrance with a ship carrying equipment to establish the planned weather station. During this visit, upon arriving at the island, they captured a mysterious photograph. This indicated that someone had been to the island before them, and there were already abandoned lifeboats present on the island. They continued their investigation by landing on the island and found some supply reserves and boat oars not far from the shore. However, they did not come across any signs of a campsite, evidence of recent human activity like fires, only these items and a sunken boat. The captain, feeling particularly eerie, took photos and made records of the scene. They were puzzled about how these supplies and the sunken boat got there and who might have arrived on the island before them. Could it have been the seals that brought them here? Let's delve into why the captain believed it was unlikely for anyone to have reached the island. Firstly, if the lifeboat had drifted to the island, the nearest major shipping route from here is 1,600 kilometers away. For a commercial or sailing vessel to have an incident and for its lifeboat to drift 1,600 kilometers to reach here is highly improbable. Secondly, if someone knew the coordinates of this island and attempted to row over, that would be even more unlikely. How could they row a boat over here? The boat lacks any masts or engines. Relying on just a few oars, well, using a compass to row over by themselves, this is just not feasible. Could it have been some research vessels where some crew members drifted here after an accident? Actually, that is also unlikely. Why? If it were research vessels, there would have been records of their activities. If someone had gone missing, they would have waited for rescue here, right? Those individuals couldn't have just vanished into thin air. They would have needed to use their supplies, establish a camp, and sustain themselves. There would have been signs of human habitation as people would naturally strive to survive. However, everything was absent, no signs of people, just some supplies and a sinking boat left behind. Moreover, it's important to note that the location of the sinking boat is a lagoon, not by the sea but actually inland on the island. The boat has been rowed into a lake at the center of the island, which indicates human intervention. Where did this individual go? Nobody knows. It's a complete mystery, especially since the boat remains there. Did they vanish? Could it be that beneath the volcano on the island lies a subterranean world, and this person entered the legendary advanced civilization from the hollow earth that we've heard about beneath Antarctica? This is the most far-fetched speculation, and scientists certainly cannot entertain such explanations. After the South African captain took the photograph and shared it with the world in 1964, he left the island deeply puzzled. When the South Africans returned in 1966, they were astonished to find that the entire boat, along with all the supplies, had vanished. It wasn't a matter of sinking because the lagoon where the boat was located was not deep. The boat had been stuck in the lagoon since 1964. Additionally, the nearby equipment and supplies had also disappeared, as if someone had come to the island between 1964 and 1966 and removed everything, leaving no trace behind. This is the mystery of Bouvet Island, incredibly surreal and inexplicable. No one has been able to provide a satisfactory explanation. It wasn't until many years later, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, that a plausible explanation emerged from leaked information. Scientists discovered that in 1958, a Soviet expedition had visited the island. The whaling ship, Slava, and the research vessel Slava No. 9 had left records of some crew members landing on the island for exploration but getting stranded due to a storm. After 3 days, they were rescued and airlifted back to the ship by a helicopter. This Soviet expedition in 1958 aligns with the mysterious events on Bouvet Island, providing a possible connection to the enigma. Oh, so you were all part of the Soviet research expedition to this island, and then why did your Soviet expedition mysteriously disappear? It's said that finally some Soviets airlifted you away. This explanation seems plausible on the surface, but it fails to account for why the boat and supplies later vanished. Moreover, there's a crucial aspect that remains unexplained. According to the Soviets, they spent 3 days on the island. During these 3 days, did they not set up camp? Did they not live or eat? That seems highly improbable. Yet, when everything was found later, there were no signs of their camp, supplies, or any evidence of their presence. Why is that? The Soviet records that initially seemed to explain the mystery of Bouvet Island actually make the case even more mysterious. The enigma becomes increasingly perplexing. Who was it that left the boat and supplies on this island, only for them to mysteriously disappear later? Why were they cleared away? There are so many unanswered questions. One suspicion is that the South African government orchestrated this whole scenario. This suspicion seems plausible, considering that the South Africans might have been involved in some activities on the island but chose to remain silent about it. What were they doing on this remote island? Furthermore, to this day, investigations into this case continue, and there is a mysterious individual online who has only released 2 videos. This person visited Bouvet Island in person. Unable to land on the island, he deployed a drone to scan and explore the entire island. He mentioned that there is a cave near the sunken boat on the island, which seems to lead into the island's interior. He speculates that the reason the Soviet crew didn't set up camp could be that they sought refuge in this cave. This is a very reasonable conjecture. If we let our imaginations run wild, could it be that deep within this cave, Soviet and South African individuals collaborated to build an underground base? Could this underground base be related to the so-called Antarctic Inner Earth People research? And how did those boats disappear in the end? If this cave isn't an entrance to the inner world, and the Soviets sought refuge there, it could explain why there were no traces of their daily life during those 3 days. But it still doesn't explain how those boats disappeared. There must have been someone who came later to deal with those boats. Could these individuals who handled the ships have also come from within that underground base? Knowing that the situation was getting serious outside, they might have tried to cover up the evidence by disposing of the boat. The mystery deepens further. This investigator discovered in the Australian tax system records that Bouvet Island, supposedly uninhabited and desolate, had tax records being reported to Australia. This revelation is puzzling. Continuing the investigation in a World Factbook database, it was found that Bouvet Island had import and export data. Every year, there were significant amounts of import and export data. Who is conducting import and export activities here? Could it be that here truly be a stationed military force underground, engaging in import and export activities? And who are these military forces? Were they jointly established by South Africans and Soviets? What are they doing down there? This unravels a mysterious puzzle of Bouvet Island from a scientific perspective, making it one of the most enigmatic Antarctic mysteries, potentially holding evidence of interactions between certain humans and inhabitants of the inner Earth. That concludes our story for today. Thank you, everyone.